Okay, everybody, it's time we talk about testosterone. And I mean everybody, because women need testosterone too. Men just obviously want a lot more of it because it gives us initiative. It makes us want to do things. It makes us get out there and take on the world. And we've been told a bunch of stories about testosterone that just naturally decreases as you get older and it's harder to make. And I disagree very strongly with that statement because there are all these other things that we're ignoring if we say that. And these other things are all of the nutrients that are needed to make it that tend to be diminished and less and less and less available and on your plate to be able to make it. So the reason I'm making this video is I have a lot of people asking me about this, and they ask me about these different herbs like, ashwagandha and tomcat ali, and these are all wonderful herbs, and there's some great things to them. But I want to caution everybody before you try to use those that if you don't first make sure you have all of the nutrients for those herbs to work with, you're probably going to get mediocre results at best. And so we really want to make sure before we do anything else, do we have the genuine equipment? Do we have the actual chemistry we need to fully make this? And when you start looking at this list, I have 8 things I'm going to list below that are commonly missing from the standard American diet that are all associated and essential for testosterone production. We have to look at all those first. And the good news is when we get those addressed, it's not just testosterone that gets better, everything in your body gets better. And there are 2 that are not on that list that I'm going to tell you about at the end that we really need to know about that are kind of a little bit of a secret, actually, which is kind of cool. But let me show you one of the reasons that I did this post today. I have a friend who we've been working for years on his testosterone. And this is him showing me what happens when he finally got all of his testosterone together. Now, to be fair, Chris is in his 30s, right? So he doesn't have as many challenges as the rest of us doing that. And yes, that's 100 pounds tied around his waist, and he's still doing weighted chin ups, which is inspirational at the very least, you could say. And there are other things that we're working on as well that we've been doing to make sure that he's maximizing his muscle. But obviously, he's doing the exercises that have to be done to be able to support the chemistry that we're giving him. So, beyond the chemistry, there are herbs, and then there are definitely activities that we need to incorporate if we're going to maximize testosterone. But I think the most important place to start is nutrition because everything else is kind of a non-starter if you don't have that. So I'm going to talk about the number one thing that I think is overlooked and misunderstood, and that is cholesterol. Cholesterol is actually the precursor for all of our hormones. 100% of your testosterone is derived from cholesterol. So we cannot make it. We cannot make testosterone without it. So when we're trying to push cholesterol down all the time, we're really inhibiting and minimizing our body's ability to make it. And that's one of the big pieces. When we start to get into the other pieces that I've listed below, one of the most common things I see missing very frequently is zinc. And zinc is absolutely essential for this. So we have to make sure that those 2 pieces are there. Another big one that most people are missing is vitamin D. So you can see I'm creating this list below that we have to look at, and there's a lot of story behind all of that, and I can do a much longer video getting to each of those in the granular way. But check out that list and just make sure that you're including those. And I'm going to point to one little study here, specifically about one that people kind of tend to forget about, and this is boron. And it's a great study from the NIH about nothing boring about boron. And they were showing that the increased levels of sex steroids have been demonstrated in both men and women after boron supplementation. So it is essential. Again, we forget that this is an essential mineral that we need to be able to produce our own testosterone. And I remind people that we have areas of our body where we sequester these. And interestingly enough, it's actually our parathyroid that sequesters boron. So there's a lot of other things that boron needs, or that our body needs boron for to function, but one of them is testosterone. Now, I did say I would get into 2 things that people do not think about specifically. And one of these, I hope this makes sense to you, is very missing in the standard American diet because it is usually derived from wheat, and we would get it from eating bread. But that bread would have to have the living piece in it when it was milled and made. Unfortunately, for the last almost 100 years, this piece has been removed, because if it stays in the bread, the bread goes bad quickly within a few days. So they remove it so the bread can live longer, and that is the wheat germ. This is what I would call a sex hormone precursor. In order to make the sex hormones, we have to have an abundance of this. It also keeps your skin healthy and many, many other things in your body. But that's one of the ones that most people forget. And I didn't include in the list below because that's one that wouldn't have come up in a search, or what are all the nutrients that I need to make that. So that's one that we really need to know about. And then the final one is really kind of unique in the fact that we don't think about how we support the glands that help us make testosterone. We're talking about your orchic glands, we're talking about your adrenal glands, your whole endocrine system. And again, this brings me back to this really unique piece that unfortunately not very many people know about, and it's a protomorphogen. It is that tissue-specific piece that helps protect and heal those glands that help us make those. And there's a lot of things that have caused those to need healing and protection. And when you bring that in and you get all of these together, then we can start looking at what are some of the other things that are impacting us. So I'll do another video about how these hormones get converted and what they get converted into, and what things can help maintain higher levels of testosterone and keep it from over converting into the other things that we don't necessarily want an excess of. And then finally, I'll do another video about the action steps. But I just want to check and see if anybody has more interest in hearing more about this, if this is interesting to you to begin with. And we'll start with the chemistry first before we start going off into those other things. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful.